Tell Me More with me, CJ Quartelbaum. I'm here to talk about Gen Z leadership and preparing for the future. So today I'm bringing you a book review. It's The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson. This book right here. This is one of the most important books that I have read this year. In this book, I would say that Amy argues the essence of leadership is the creation of psychological safety. Now, let me tell you why that is so important. Because without psychological safety, your organization is either destined for failure at worst and a failure to launch, a failure to reach its full capacity at best. Psychological safety, as defined in the book, is broadly defined as a climate in which people are comfortable expressing and being themselves. More specifically, when people have psychological safety at work, they feel comfortable sharing concerns and mistakes without fear of embarrassment or retribution. They are confident that they can speak up and won't be humiliated, ignored, or blamed. They know they can ask questions when they are unsure about something. Now, as I was reading this book earlier this year, and I was thinking about psychological safety, and I'm thinking about my career, I don't know if I have ever experienced this. When I think back to my days in finance, you feel like you were just another cog in the machine. There was this pressure to always have the answer, to never make a mistake. You were almost expected to be a perfect little robot. And if you couldn't be, there was someone out there who was graduating next week who was more than ready, willing, capable, and able of taking your place. You walked around on eggshells. And fear. I remember at several different large banks that I've worked at, seeing someone who was 3 levels above me and having my colleagues go, put your head down quick. Don't let him or her see you. That's not a place of psychological safety. When you live in fear of any mistake that you might make or any slip up or perhaps just having a bad day, you are always reminded that you could be replaced. Outside of finance, I've worked with and for leaders who didn't create environments that felt safe. It was safe to express dissenting views. A lot of the times I've dealt with leaders who have felt that their answers were the right answers and their way was the right way, and you could either get in line or get off the train. How do you deal with that? I have firsthand experience of what a lack of psychological safety can do to an organization and its people. I have seen leaders who have crafted environments of fear, leaders who have crafted silos around themselves. And if you weren't in the in-group, then you knew you were in the out-group. And because of that, everyone walked around wondering, is today my day? Is today the day that they let me go? So reading this book was very eye-opening for me. It was really cool to be able to put language to a lot of the things that I have seen and experienced and felt along the way. So I want to give you some of my big takeaways from the book. I know that as you're listening to this, it's the day after Thanksgiving. We're all pretty stuffed. And so I'm not going to be here for too long because I think we still need to get some of those post-Thanksgiving naps in. I want to tell you first what psychological safety is not, because oftentimes we hear psychological safety and creating this environment in which people can express themselves, in which people can make mistakes, in which people can fully and freely show up as who they are. If you think back to my conversation with Dr. Patricia Hewlin, she talked about this idea of just being able to show up in the workplace as your full self is indicative of having psychological safety. But it's that part where we talk about the ability to freely mess up, to make mistakes. People think that psychological safety is lowering the standards. And that's not true. Creating safety for people to bring their full selves into the workplace doesn't mean you have to play limbo. It doesn't mean that suddenly the bar must be lower, that you don't have to hold people to a high standard and do things the way that you are accustomed to doing them. It's perfectly fine to have high standards, but in those, can people be who they are and still be accepted? That's ultimately what it comes down to. Have all the standards you want, but is that a place in which people can be themselves? Now, this helpful little graph up here, or maybe it's full screen, probably full screen because I'm going to open up the book right now, shows you what it looks like when people don't have psychological safety, when they find themselves living in what Dr. Edmondson would call the anxiety zone. What you have are these four quadrants. And so if you're looking at it, you can see that you have your comfort zone, which is a place of high psychological safety. Everybody feels good, right? They're showing up to work. They don't feel any trepidation. There's no nerves there, but the standards are low. And because the standards are low and everybody feels good, everyone's comfortable. But then if you have low psychological safety and low standards, no one feels secure, but also there's no real bar to achieve. And so what you get is the apathy zone. And in the apathy zone, you have a bunch of people walking around just kind of wandering, maybe a little aimless. You could tell they don't fully care. I think of the people in the apathy zone as the ones who they show up just on time or maybe 5 minutes late and they leave 5 minutes early. They say, hey, I'm here to do my job and nothing else. I'm going to check the boxes I need to check for today, and then I'm out. But then if you have high psychological safety and high standards, you get learning and high performance. Because now not only do people feel safe, they feel comfortable being themselves in the workplace, but also they know that the bar is high. I have a standard that I need to meet, and I am encouraged and enabled and empowered to meet that standard. And because of that, you now get people who are committed to growth, people who are committed to learning, but also they become high performers. Because again, the standard is high, and because they feel comfortable, because they feel accepted, they feel wanted, valued, needed, all these things that, we basically need as humans to survive on a social, emotional level. Because they have these needs met, they're knocking it out the park. But there's one more quadrant, the low psychological safety and high standards. That is the danger zone. That is the zone that leads to anxiety, because now you're unsure of your position. You don't know where you stand on a day to day, but you know the bar is high. You know that you've got to hit those KPIs and those KRAs are coming at your neck, and it's December, so we're in performance review time, and you have no idea of your place in this company. Now you're anxious. Now you show up to every meeting tracking your every word. Now you show up to every event. Now you turn in every report just wondering, did I get this right? Is this going to be the reason they let me go? I cannot tell you how many times I've been in jobs where I've been responsible for, let's say, giving a presentation. And as I'm giving the presentation, I'm thinking to myself, man, those are the four things right there that are going to get me fired. Do I have any basis for that? Do I have any proof of that? Has anyone said anything to me? More often than not, the answer was no. But because my position in that place was a place of low psychological safety, I was guessing. I was kind of walking in the dark, grasping, hoping that I was headed in the right direction because I knew that the bar was high. I just didn't know what my place was. And because of that, they weren't getting the best version of me. They were getting a scared version of me, a version of myself that was living in fear and wondering, man, is today the day? So a lack of psychological safety can and will destroy your company. In the book, Dr. Edmondson gives examples of where things have gone tragically wrong because people were afraid to speak up. So one of the key examples she gives, I believe it was from Space Shuttle Columbia, this NASA project where there was an accident that led, unfortunately, to several tragic deaths. Well, what essentially happened is there was a faulty piece of equipment that if you looked at it and you knew what you were talking about, you could see, hey, this could be a problem. But as always, there was a rush to get the product out, to get the launch going. And there was an engineer who weeks before had spotted this potential problem. But because that engineer did not feel psychologically safe enough to bring this up, they just let it go. And when interviewed afterwards, the engineer was quoted as saying something along the lines of, oh, well, I can't say something like that. This person's 3 levels above me. I have no place to speak into what is happening. How many times have you known the answer? How many times have you had foresight on the problem, but you didn't say anything because you weren't sure if your voice would be valued and respected in that moment? I've been in environments where I have tried to make a plea for something, where I would give my expertise as the person who is on the ground, because often decisions are made in a top-down way and the person at the top is disconnected from what is happening on the ground. And I would be in this role where I'm on the ground. I have direct contact with the client or the constituent or whoever, and I'm saying to my superiors, hey, this is what it is. Hey, this is what these people actually need. This is where this department is failing. And I would watch my words go in one ear and out of the other. Now, you could probably say, hey, CJ, you are just the wrong messenger. And maybe, but these stories are often too common for us to say simply, I'm the wrong messenger, over and over. So do you know what this has caused me to do in my career? I would just sit back in silence. I would say my words are not valued here. I am not respected here. My expertise is clearly not what they want. So why would I waste my time speaking up? Why would I waste my time trying to plead a case that I knew was falling on deaf ears? Obviously, if you're leading an organization, if you are the owner of a company, that's not what you want. But when you create an environment of low psychological safety, that's what you get. Psychological safety is the key to unlocking your team's best potential. If you want to be the type of leader that people run through walls for, the type of leader that people will follow, I wouldn't say blindly, but with complete trust, then you have to be the type of leader who creates psychological safety in your environment. See, the absence of fear changes people's lives. They'll be willing to put themselves out there if there's no fear. They're willing to take the risk if there is no fear. They're willing to trust you and follow you if they are not afraid. What I've seen often are the leaders who they make you feel warm and embraced and like you're part of the family, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I found it. This team is such a great team. And you follow them because you trust their leadership. And then the moment you fail, the moment you don't meet their expectations, the moment you are not who they want you to be, they throw you aside. And now that leader that you are willing to run through a brick wall for is now the leader you are cowering from. It's now the leader you're in fear of because you don't know your place anymore. And that those situations in particular, because I know many of you watching this have experienced this very thing, those are the most jarring because you're thinking to yourself, I thought we were cool. I thought things were okay. Like, right, this isn't a real family. This is work. But I thought that there was an actual friendship here based on the way you treated me. Now I'm living in fear, knowing that at some point or at any whim of yours, I fall victim to your judgment. So again, the psychological safety has diminished. And now you're not getting close to the best version of that person you could have possibly gotten. So if you want to see the best that your team can be, then what do you need to do to make people feel safe, to increase psychological safety? If you want to know if you've created an environment of high or low psychological safety, pay attention in your next meeting, in your next ideas meeting. Watch the way people pitch. Do people present their ideas and then look at you? Or do people present their ideas and everyone else looks at you, almost as if waiting to see, hey, is this okay? Is this good? Does this get your nod of approval? If that's the way people feel they have to present their ideas and themselves, or they look at the ideas their colleagues present, then you're not getting the best version of them. People need to feel safe enough to present stupid ideas, to critique your ideas. Pay attention in those meetings. Do your ideas ever receive real pushback? Do they ever receive real critique? And not by the one or two voices who always do, because I think almost every group, if you get a large enough team, will have the one or two people who are always the dissenting voices. But do most people feel they can critique your ideas? They can say something hard to you. As a leader, are you above critique? If you are not a person people feel they can come to, and when I say people feel they can come to, I want you to hear me. I'm not talking about the strongest personalities, the people who are going to speak up no matter what. I'm talking about the quieter, the shyer, the people who are a little bit more afraid, and you know this about them. Are those the kind of people who feel they can say something to you about your ideas? They can offer a little pushback. Are those the people who feel like they can present their worst ideas? Or are they playing the game? Are they only speaking when they know they have a home run? Everyone doesn't have the best ideas all the time, not even you. And so think about if the ideas you hear from them are always the ones that would almost be similar to what you would pitch. This is, if you have self-awareness as a leader, this is going to give you a very good idea as to whether or not you have created psychological safety. So I'm gonna wrap this one up because, again, it's after Thanksgiving, but I didn't want today to come without dropping an episode for you. So this book right here, The Fearless Organization. Let's see, all right. The Fearless Organization. If you're just listening to the audio, I was able to just put it in front of the camera and actually get it to focus on that. Again, I'm still learning this video stuff out. So please Like this, comment, share, subscribe, because I'll get better with time. And I want you to be a part of that journey. But this book, The Fearless Organization, is by far one of the most transformative books I have read in terms of how I interact with those who lead me in various capacities, but also in understanding what people need and want in terms of creating an environment, a workspace in which they can feel recognized. They can feel seen, they can feel known, they can feel valued and appreciated. Work is way too much of our lives. And so if you are in a place where you spend 40, 50, maybe some of you 60 hours a week in the anxiety zone, where the standards are high and the psychological safety is low, that's the place that leads to death. That's the place, honestly, that leads to us burying and compounding all of these terrible negative feelings. The anxiety starts to take over our bodies. And as Gabriel Mate said, the body keeps the score. Work is too much of our lives to spend it in these places of low psychological safety, to feel ourselves constantly frustrated, constantly wondering, what is going on here? What am I doing? So I hope you pick this book up, whether you're a leader or not. And I hope that you can see the power that psychological safety has to bring transformation to your organization. And maybe this book opened your eyes. Will open your eyes and will make you aware that you're not in a great place. Because I think we all deserve safety. As you're reading this book and you start to see descriptions of how places of low psychological safety operate, it might open up and unlock some things for you. And my hope is you are able to take the steps necessary to get there. Life is too short and work is too much of a part of it to be spending all of this time anxious and in fear. So go find some safety. Find some people who value your voice and want what you bring to the table, who want to hear what you have to say. People who will not devalue you and disrespect you, because we all deserve that. But what do I know? I'm just some guy from Brooklyn. See you next time.